السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت إن شئت تجعل الحزن سهلا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من أن نشرك بك شيئا نعلمه ونستغفرك لما لا نعلمه. ثم أما بعد. We started this series of lectures about Islamic law and jurisprudence and the evolution of fiqh and madhahib and schools of thought within Islam. And as I mentioned before, having different schools of thought is very healthy and enrich the Islamic law and gives it enough flexibility. So Islamic law can deal with different questions and new questions at all times and places. So because we believe Islam is a universal religion and Islamic law is applicable at all times and places, and therefore it must be flexible and open for interpretations. However, all these interpretations or difference in opinion must not contradict the well-established rules in the Quran and the teaching of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because again, the Quran and the Sunnah did not give a direct answer to every question. So many new questions come every day, and we cannot find a direct answer in the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's why the Sahaba and then the Tabi'een, the third generation Tabi'een, they actually created intellectual tools that help the jurists or the ulama or the scholars to find answers to the various questions that come to them. Imam Shafi'i had a famous statement that anything that happened in human activities, any question comes, has an answer in Sharia, whether directly or indirectly. So directly, when the Quran speaks directly about it, or the Prophet ﷺ speaks directly about it, or the ulama will make ijtihad within the framework of the Quran and the Sunnah to try to find an answer to it. So we talked about the Tashri' al-Islami or Islamic law in the time of the Prophet, in the time of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. And Imam Abu Hanifa was one of the great Imams that many Muslims or millions of Muslims around the world, I would argue the majority of Muslims follow or apply Islam based on the fiqh and understanding of Imam Abu Hanifa. So Sunni Muslims, in Sunni Islam, there are four madhahib: Imam Hanafi, Imam Abu Hanifa, and the Maliki madhab, Imam Malik ibn Anas, and Imam Shafi'i, the Shafi'i madhab, and the Hanbali madhab, established by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali, this is the chronological order. Abu Hanifa, radiallahu anhu, he died in the year 150. Interestingly, he died in the same day and the same year, obviously, in the same day in which Imam Shafi'i was born. So you can remember this 150 Hijri, Imam Abu Hanifa died and Imam Shafi'i was born in that time. So Imam Abu Hanifa and then Imam Malik, they represented two schools of thought. One school of thought is known as Ahlul Ra'i and the people of the opinion or rational thinking. The people or the school of thought established in Medina by Imam Malik was known as Madrasatul Athar, the school that follows the narrations. So, and this actually brings up a very well-known question in Islamic thought, which is to what extent the human reasoning and aql has a role to play against the naql. Naql means the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So we have wahi, revelation, Quran, and the hadith of the Prophet versus the human mind. So to what extent the human mind plays a role in producing Islamic law? Or is Islamic law all divine, or is it all human, or is it a mixture of both? right? Because some argue now, I don't know if you heard this argument, that Islamic law is purely human, has nothing to do with divinity. It's not divine at all. Some argue mistakenly that it has nothing to do with divinity. It's not divine law. It's like any other. It's like American law or French law, any other law. It's people who create law. Others believe that everything is divine, but the reality is it's a mixture of both. We have usul, we have the source, and then we have the human intellect to try to understand the text and apply it in a particular context. So, the Ja'fari madhab is, of course, the most famous Shia madhab. And also there's a Zaydi madhab in Yemen, Nisba Imam Zayd ibn Ali, Zain al-Abidin. And Zaydi is very close from Shafi'i, anyways. So this is another madhab that was born and died and disappeared, or not in existence anymore. Like madhab al-Zahiri, for example. Zahiri is a madhab that was strong at certain time, and then it vanished. Imam Dawood al-Zahiri, and then Imam Ibn Hazm, the great Andalusian scholar in Andalusia in Europe, he was the spokesman of al-Madhab al-Zahiri. And the Ibadis are there. Ibadis are the descendants of the Kharijites, and they are in Oman, Sultanate Oman in particular, and it's limited to this particular part of the world. But Hanafi and Maliki and Shafi'i and Hanbali are these are the four madhahib that Sunni Muslims follow. So today we'll talk about Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa, the founder of this madhab. And again, I just want to emphasize the point that Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Malik, they did not actually plan to have a madhab, and this madhab would be followed for centuries to come. They had no idea. They were just doing their business. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for some reason, allowed these four madhahib to stay and to be well established. And the ulama said that these four madhahib in particular stayed longer mainly because the students of these imams were brilliant students who wrote down the methodology of their imams and the masail and the opinion of these great imams. And this is what makes this madhab or this school of thought popular. All right? So an imam was maybe more knowledgeable than Imam Malik, Imam Layth ibn Sa'd in Egypt. They said he has more knowledge than Malik, but he does not have a lot of students who write his knowledge and document it and then pass it to the next generation and so on. This did not happen to Sufyan al-Thawri, for example, or Layth ibn Sa'd and others. But for Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, and Imam Malik, and Imam Ahmad, they have brilliant students who wrote and discussed and expanded the madhab. Additionally, the Hanafi madhab is one of the reasons why it is the most popular madhab is because two big dynasties or caliphates adopted the Hanafi madhab as the official madhab. The Abbasids and then the Ottoman Empire. Actually, that was the official madhab, the Hanafi madhab. So when they hire judges who are Hanafi, and that's why the Hanafi madhab spread everywhere, because the Abbasids actually ruled for more than 500 years, and the Ottomans or the Khilafah al-Uthmaniyya also ruled for so long, or so huge part of the Muslim empire. So because of this political reason, the Hanafi madhab was widespread, and still the majority of Muslims follow the Hanafi madhab. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, his name is Ibn Nu'man. I remember when I was watching like old Egyptian movies, when you have a scene of marriage and the Imam comes to conduct the nikah, and he says that zawajtuka nafsi ala kitabillah, according to kitabullah and the sunnah of the Prophet, and according to Al-Imam Al-A'zam, Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man. So they have to say it in the ijab and qabul statement in marriage, ala kitabillah wa sunnat rasulillah wa ala madhab al-Imam Al-A'zam, Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man. All right? That's because the Ottoman Empire ruled Egypt for hundreds of years. So the madhab of Abu Hanifa was, and by the way, still the dominant madhab when it comes to family law in Egypt. Although a lot of change happened in recent decades, but the main family law in Egypt, for example, is made based on Hanafi madhab. In part, this is how influential the Hanafi madhab is. So his name is An-Nu'man, but his kunya, his nickname is Abu Hanifa. And they said the word Hanifa in Iraq and Kufa, it refers to the bottle of ink, because he always used it to write. And so it's called Abu Hanifa. This is one narration. Another said the word Hanifa or Hanif means straightforward. Ibrahim, Hanifan Musliman wa ma kana mushrikeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about Ibrahim as Hanifan, right? قل إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا. So Hanif means straightforward, strong, steadfast. So that was his kunya. And Abu Hanifa, interestingly, was, some said that he was Persian. His grandfather was Persian, moved to Iraq area, and they were business people. They have the business of clothes and silk in particular, and they were wealthy. And he was born to a wealthy family. But and of course, you can imagine Baghdad at that time, and Al-Kufa, he's from Al-Kufa, was the place of intellectuals. Plenty of debates, schools of thoughts, theological school of thought, Al-Khawarij, Wal-Mu'tazila, Wal-Asha'ira, Wal-Maturidiyya. And there were also different religions, discussion about theological differences, and fuqaha and muhaddithin and scholars of Nahw and Arabic language and grammar and so on. So he grew up in this environment. But he had to go and help his father business. He goes from time to time to attend these study circles. And one day, Al-Imam al-Sha'bi, who was older than Abu Hanifa, was also a great Imam. Imam al-Sha'bi said to Abu Hanifa, who is your teacher? What kind of halaqah do you attend? He said, unfortunately, I'm unable to attend many halaqahs because of business, and I have to go to the market more than study circles. And he said, son, listen, use your time wisely. Attend these study circles, because I see that you are brilliant. Allah give you a high level of intellect, and you will have a brilliant future. So go and attend these study circles. And he said, this changed my life. Abu Hanifa himself said, this changed my life, and I gave more time to the ulama. And he said, I looked at knowledge in different kinds of science, Islamic sciences. Ilm al-Kalam or theology is going to take you nowhere. Islam is simple, and studying this, if you spend 40 years studying this, in the end of the day, you will spend your life debating people about things that not really useful. And I looked at Nahw or grammar. Then you'll end up having young kids coming to learn grammar. So he said, I looked at fiqh, and I found this very deep, and I liked it. Some people were created to do particular things, right? So he has this legal mentality. So he actually was attracted to fiqh in particular. So he went to a great scholar at that time. His name is Hamad ibn Sulaiman. And Imam Abu Hanifa attended when he was 22 years old. He started spending most of his time studying with Hamad ibn Sulaiman. Hamad ibn Sulaiman was a great scholar. And one day Abu Hanifa said, I thought I'm old enough now, I don't need to attend anymore. I will establish my own study circle. And he said, I came to the masjid with this intention, to establish my own study circle. But I found Hamad teaching, and I said he could not do it, out of respect to his sheikh, Hamad ibn Sulaiman. He said, I joined Hamad's study circle as usual. And then while he was teaching, someone told him that one of his relatives died, and he had to leave. And he said, he called me, Abu Hanifa, and said, okay, you take my place and answer people's questions. So it just came. He said, I was asked about 60 questions, and I wrote my answer. I gave my answer, and I wrote them. So when Hamad came, Hamad ibn Sulaiman came, I showed him my answer to these questions, and he agreed with me on 40 of them and disagreed with me on 20 of them. So this, he said, that was a big step for me to understand how to handle these study circles attended by students of knowledge who are coming from everywhere to seek knowledge. It's also important to know that Imam Abu Hanifa stayed with his Sheikh Hamad Sulaiman for 18 years. And only when Hamad died, he took his place, and he started a new way of teaching. That's very kind of similar to the liberal art teaching style in universities now. Imam Abu Hanifa did not write a lot of books. There's a famous book that he wrote with the name of Al-Fiqh al-Akbar in Aqidah, in faith and theology, but he did not write his own books of fiqh. What he did instead is that he would bring a question. What do you say about this mas'ala? And he let his students, many of whom became great scholars after that, everybody present his argument. And he listens. And he allows everybody to speak, to give their input. And in the very end, he would give his own ruling based on his own understanding. So in other words, he's not telling his students, this is what it is, as many ulama like to do, right? Write a book, you memorize this book, you pass the test, then you become a scholar. It's not like this. Abu Hanifa actually allowed his student to present their arguments, and he would listen, and he would be the last one to speak. And what does this do? I benefit tremendously from this method in Oxford, when students of knowledge, PhD students, actually talk about, everybody talk about his or her opinion, and then the professor in the end would make his or her argument. This is how people actually learn from each other. Students learn from each other, actually, not only from their teacher. Abu Hanifa, in addition to his knowledge, he was also known as a very trustworthy person. He's known as a pious and righteous person with great deal or high standard of akhlaq and amana. So one day he sent one of his partners to sell these clothes, and he told him, this particular clothes has some defect on it. So before you sell it, you must inform people about this defect. And his partner went and he sold it, and he forgot to tell people about the defect of this particular clothes. And he came back, and Abu Hanifa asked him, did you tell people about the defect on this? He said, oh, I forgot. So he spent the price of all these clothes as sadaqah. He did not accept this kind of money. Abu Hanifa was one of those people who sleep very few hours. And he was known as a person who prayed Fajr with the same wudu he made for Isha. He spent most of the night praying. And one of his students actually observed him at night in the masjid, alone, started Qiyamul Layl, Tahajjud. And he said maybe he will read 1/4 of the Quran. And he kept going. Surah Al-Baqarah, Al-Imran, Juz al-Awwal, al-Thani, al-Thalith. And he finished the entire Quran before Fajr. So imagine if someone prays Isha and stand in prayer, reciting the entire Quran before Fajr. That's possible. It is possible. He was one of these people. And then after Fajr, he teaches students. And then he goes to the market to take care of his business and comes back at Dhuhr, sleep between Dhuhr and Asr. And after Asr, until Isha, he teaches. Not only that, Abu Hanifa was a very generous person. He was wealthy. He's coming from a wealthy family. He has his own business. He has his partners working for him. And he used actually to give students of knowledge. This is what we call it today, scholarship. When you have brilliant students, this is what happened to Abu Yusuf. Abu Yusuf became the second man in the Hanafi madhab. Right after Abu Hanifa, it's Abu Yusuf. And Abu Yusuf actually became the supreme judge, a position that Abu Hanifa refused to take. We'll talk about it. But Abu Yusuf, same thing. The opposite of Abu Hanifa, he was very poor, coming from a poor family. He has to work. But Abu Hanifa also noticed that Abu Yusuf is a brilliant student, and he told him, how much do you make per day? He said, between this and that. He gave him an estimate of how much money he makes a day. He said, okay, I will give you this amount of money, but you come here every day. Okay. And then Abu Yusuf became Abu Yusuf, supreme judge. So this idea of giving scholarship to brilliant students, just let them just stay, do nothing, but seek knowledge, get highest degrees, and then go and teach. That Abu Hanifa was ahead of his time, and he actually provided this scholarship to some of his students. He looked handsome, and he takes very good care of his appearance, his clothes. He used to dress very expensive clothes and expensive amama and shoes, and he applies expensive perfume, and people can smell after he leaves. Actually, they come and they smell, okay, Abu Hanifa was here because this particular perfume. He was that charismatic person, very humble, but that was his personality. And there is a nice story. Imam Malik was like this, by the way. Imam Malik was like this as well. And I remember this story of the Sufis. Sufis usually, the word Sufis come from the wool, that they dress just very basic clothes like monks. And that's enough. And until Imam Shadhuli, who is a big Sufi tariqa now, knows as Shadhuliya. He was a great Sufi, but he was the opposite. He was wealthy, and he dresses good clothes and ride expensive horses and things. And that Sufi told him, how come that you're a Sufi and you're dressing like this and riding such expensive horse? And that actually made a big shift in the Sufi movement. We'll talk about Sufism perhaps some other time. But Imam Shadhuli's rationale is that he said that your clothes and your appearance telling people that I need your help, and my clothes tells people that I don't need anything from you. That's a real Sufism. Sufism in the heart is not in the how you look. Right? That was his rationale. And Abu Hanifa and Malik and many other Imams were like that. It's a personal choice. Imam Ahmad was not like that. Imam Ahmad was like a very simple person. One clothes for the whole year is enough. But Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik were different. Shadhuliya, no. Shadhuliya is Imam Abu Hassan al-Shadhuli. No. He died in Egypt in near the Red Sea. So Abu Hanifa actually grew up in this intellectual environment, and he became the greatest faqih. And he actually built his methodology on the following. He said that when I find the hukm in the Quran, that's it. If I don't find the Quran, and then I look at the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the authentic hadith, if I don't find it in the Sunnah, then I look at the opinion of the Sahaba. If you have like 2 or 3 opinions, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Abbas, and for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, there are 3 opinions. He said, I'll choose one of them. I'm not going to create a 4th one. But if it comes to the scholars of my time, like Al-Hasan al-Basri and Al-Sha'bi and Sa'id ibn Musayyib, I will make my own ijtihad like they did their own ijtihad. So Quran, Sunnah, the aqwal al-Sahaba, and then I will make my own ijtihad. His ijtihad is based on the Quran and the Sunnah and the Sahaba and the ijma', something called ijma' or consensus. If all Muslim scholars agreed on one thing, that's it. That has the power of law. If not, then we'll do something called qiyas. And qiyas is perhaps the most used intellectual tools. Qiyas basically is to find a ruling of something that's not mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, but something similar to it was mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Right? So it takes the same ruling. So you need to have 4 things. Something mentioned in the Quran, something is not mentioned in the Quran, and the ruling of what mentioned in the Quran, and the effective cause or the illah that makes this similar to this. So things take the same ruling if they are similar. All right. So the most famous example is all kind of beer and wine, or anything that intoxicates. Then it takes the ruling of alcohol or wine, which is mentioned in the Quran. Anything intoxicates, similar to what mentioned in the Quran, al-khamr, because the illah or the effective cause is what? Intoxication, right? So this kind of beer, whatever you name it, whiskey or uh, brandy or whatever, okay, because it intoxicates, it has the same effective cause of what's mentioned in the Quran, so it takes the same ruling, so it's haram, right? So some would argue about this is not mentioned in the Quran. Okay, yeah, the Quran is not going to mention all kind of wines. Okay, no vodka mentioned in the Quran, right? But vodka takes the same ruling because it has the same effective cause. So, and then something even more than this called al-istihsan, the jurist preference. If the rule or the law cannot be consistent, then they actually have the authority to switch it to something that's more convenient to people. Only few can do this. Imam Shafi actually did not like this way of istinbat or ijtihad, because said man istahsana faqad sharra. But Abu Hanifa was very good in this. What actually makes Abu Hanifa unique is that he not only knows the Quran and the Sunnah and the Hadith, but he also knows his reality. He knows politics. He knows business. He knows transactions. He was a businessman himself. So when people come and bring new questions about new kind of transaction, then he would use again this methodology: Quran and the Sunnah and the Sahaba, and then the ijma' and qiyas, istihsan, and then al-urf wal-'ada, what's known as the custom, right? The urf, as long as it is not haram, it is like this is what people used to do, then he would consider this in his fatwa, in his opinion. That's basically summarize the manhaj of Abu Hanifa in giving fatwa.
I was going to ask, like, what years did he live in?
52, 150. He died in 150. And I just said that that's the same year in which Imam Shafi'i was born. So Abu Hanifa died in 150, Shafi'i was born in 150. And he met 7 of the Sahaba. So that's why he's considered tabi'in. So he met Anas ibn Malik and others. Uh, so he met some of them, and he said, I heard Anas ibn Malik, the companion of the Prophet, says that he heard the Prophet saying that طلب العلم فريضة على كل Muslim. Seeking knowledge is a fard, is a wajib, it's mandatory upon every Muslim. So he got this hadith. Only one person was between him and Rasulullah. That's Anas ibn Malik, right? And also his father, Thabit. His name is An-Nu'man ibn Thabit. Thabit actually met Ali ibn Abi Talib and gave him a gift, and Imam Ali prayed for him. May Allah bless you and your wealth and your children. So Thabit actually met Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Imam Ali prayed for him and his family. It's also important to know that Abu Hanifa was involved in the political activities in his time, because this was the time when the Umayyads were ruling, and after the assassination of Imam al-Hussein, many revolutions actually occurred against the Umayyads, because people did not like the way they are ruling and killing family of the Prophet ﷺ and so on. So there was a big revolution against the Umayyads by Imam Zayd ibn Ali. Imam Zayd ibn Ali ibn Ali Zain al-Abidin ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. So the great grandson of Imam Ali. And he supported him openly and funded him against the Umayyads. The Umayyads actually tried to hire Abu Hanifa to work for them, and he refused. They actually assigned him to be what's known as a Rais al-Diwan. So any letter, any order must be sealed with the seal of the governor. And he wants Abu Hanifa to be the man who writes and seal the messages. He said, no, 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 I cannot do that, because they always send message to kill people and to, take their properties and so on. I cannot be part of this corrupt government. And the governor of Al-Kufa got so angry and he made an oath. Wallahi, if he refused this job, I will harm him. And he refused. And he said, Abu Hanifa said, if they ask me to count how many doors of the masjid, I will not even work. I'm not going to do this job for them because they're corrupt. He was not like one of the scholars that can be bought by money. Because some scholars, unfortunately, they just want to get closer from the political authority. They look for position and money and just do whatever these corrupt governments want them to do, give them legitimacy. Abu Hanifa refused that. And he supported the family of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he refused the job. They took him and they imprisoned him and beaten him badly, to the point where one of the guards of the prison told this corrupt governor, Ibn Hubayra, Umar ibn Hubayra, that the guy is going to die. Just let him out. Let him go. Because if he died in prison, that would look bad. They just care about their image. Right? So they let him go to die in his home. But after a while, he managed to escape to Mecca. He went to Mecca. And he stayed there teaching, meeting students of knowledge, until the Abbasids came and took over. And they removed the Umayyads in a very bloody way. It's not time to talk about this, but Abbasids are the name of Abbasids came from Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet. So Bani al-Abbas, the children of Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Abbas is the son of Al-Abbas. So Abbasids are the descendants of Al-Abbas. And Abu Hanifa said, well, good, cannot be any better. Now the family of the Prophet are ruling. So he went back to Al-Kufa and then to Baghdad. But politics ruined everything. Abbasids, they have the name, but they were actually more harsh on the rest of the family of the Prophet than the Umayyads. So again, another big revolt against Abu Ja'far Mansur, known as the Butcher. Don't hesitate to kill, because the desire of authority, as Imam Sufyan al-Thawri said, the last evil thing that comes out of the heart of the saints, love of power and authority, controlling. Least desire, people kill their own children, and some kill their own fathers and brothers to gain authority, to become the ruler or Khalifa and whatever the name is, Sultan. So the entire human history revolves around fight for authority, for power, unfortunately. Islamic history is part of this, unfortunately. Are all the examples. So a person like Abu Hanifa should have been honored and respected. But most of our great ulama actually either imprisoned or tortured or killed. And Abu Hanifa was one of them. That's what many people don't know. Abu Hanifa, at the time of Abu Ja'far Mansur, again, they wanted to hire him as the supreme judge. That's a huge, imagine if someone is nominated for the Supreme Court. That's the highest position you can reach as a lawman, right? But he refused because he was popular. Abu Ja'far Mansur wants to take this popularity to his side. When Abu Hanifa works for Abu Ja'far, then the followers of Abu Hanifa will be loyal to Abu Ja'far. It's all in politics, not because they care about the system. Anyways, so he refused. And he supported the revolution of Muhammad al-Nafs al-Zakiyya, Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, great-grandson of al-Hasan ibn Ali, against Abu Ja'far Mansur. And again, Abu Hanifa in his lectures, and he supported them. And he refused the position. And Abu Ja'far Mansur put him in prison. And the two narrations. One said that he died in prison. Others said that they released him, but they poisoned him, and he died as a result of this in the year 150. A friend of mine actually wrote a wonderful book. The name is اضطهاد العلماء, or abusing scholars. And he actually made a long list of many scholars, including Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Shafi'i, and Abu Hanifa, Bukhari, and many other scholars who have been harassed. Some of them were physically tortured, and some of them actually were killed. So Abu Hanifa was one of these people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, very honest and very sharp. And he produced so many scholars, and that's why his madhab became so popular. His student, Abu Yusuf, in the year 170, in the time of Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was also another big figure in the Abbasids dynasty. Perhaps was one of the most popular and strong caliph. And his Abu Hanifa's student, Abu Yusuf, accepted the position of being the supreme judge, and he hired judges who are Hanafis everywhere. And that's one of the reasons why the Hanafi madhab spread widely. And people said so many good things about Imam al-Shafi'i, for example, said الناس عيال في الفقه على أبي حنيفة. The word عيال means dependent. You know, عيالي means my children. Usually we talk العيال, يا عيال, right? العيال means من يعول. If you have like 3, 4, 5 children, this is your عيال. And we are all عيالullah, right? Because we are dependent on Allah, right? So Shafi'i said people are عيال when it comes to fiqh to Abu Hanifa. So Abu Hanifa is like the man, and everybody else depends on Abu Hanifa, right? This, when it comes to Imam Shafi'i, it's a big thing. He met Imam Malik in Medina, and Malik was the superstar of ulama at that time. Again, different schools thought. And when Abu Hanifa left, they asked Malik about how did you find the fiqh of this man. He said he was like sweating. He said, "Oh man, he's really a faqih. He is the faqih." Imam Shafi'i was asked about the fiqh and knowledge and intelligence of Abu Hanifa. He said, if Abu Hanifa wanted to convince you that this pillar, which is made of stones, is made from gold, he can convince you with this. This is how smart he is and how strong his hujjah is. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal also used to say Abu Hanifa was not just Imam in fiqh, but Imam in righteousness and worship. And he has been tortured and lashed during the time of Al-Mansur, and he refused. Imagine someone is tortured because he refused the highest position. What kind of man that can refuse this position, let alone accept being tortured to refuse such position? That sounds kind of crazy, but he knows very well that when the scholar work for the political authority or corrupt, then he had to please them. But this, unfortunately, was the reality for many scholars. For many scholars. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, another great scholar, he said that I saw the best worshipper and the best righteous person and the most knowledgeable person, the most faqih person. And he said that the a'badun nas is Abdul Aziz ibn Abi Ruwad, and the most pious is Al-Fudail ibn Iyad, the most knowledgeable is Sufyan al-Thawri, and the most faqih is Abu Hanifa, afqahun nas, Abu Hanifa. Because fiqh is different from ilm. Ilm is more comprehensive, but fiqh in particular that require a faqih mentality, someone who can connect the ayat and the hadith and the ahkam and come up with a new ruling. So he's generous, He recites Al-Quran all the time, and he was also a quiet person, and he never speak negatively about others who disagree with him. He one day was asked, "Is what you say is the absolute truth?" When he became the superstar of his time, he said, "No, it could be the absolute wrong. It could be the absolute wrong." This is the humility of Abu Hanifa. The great ulama, they don't say, "Okay, my opinion is the right and everybody else is ignorant, they don't know anything, they're wrong." Right? He never said that. He said, maybe what I'm saying could be the most wrong thing. Imam Shafi'i actually put it differently, and he said, my opinion, I believe, is right and others are wrong, but it's possible that they are right and I'm wrong. This absolutism did not exist in this kind of level of scholars. It happened at the followers of our very fanatic followers of Abu Hanifa or Shafi'i. They became so fanatic when they believe that our madhab is the absolute right and the other madhab is the absolute wrong. This came later on. But these great ulama, scholars, they understand that this is my ijtihad. That's the human part of it, right? I cannot be 100% certain it's right. And that's why they used to change their opinion. When they see more evidence, they change. They never hesitate to say, I was wrong, now I change my opinion. Right? Because they seek knowledge, they seek the truth, not just try to promote themselves. That's why the ummah, the entire Muslim ummah, even non-Hanafi people, they respect and love Imam Abu Hanifa because of that. They were honest. They were working for al-akhirah, not working for positions, because the positions came to them. And they refused it. They want independence. And scholars now in big universities in modern time, those who have tenure track professors are protected. They are protected. They have freedom to say anything they want. Cannot be fired because of their opinion. Academic opinion, I mean. Right. I'll stop here, inshallah. If you have any comment or question, I'll be happy to take it.
I have never understood why people declare they only follow Abu Hanifa. When I was young, I was told we are Hanafi. But doesn't it create more division among the Muslims to be not thinking of Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik? Why do you have to declare yourself Hanafi?
You don't have to.
But people did.
Okay, so okay, so I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The only person who can say I'm Hanafi or I'm Shafi'i is the person who studied in depth the Hanafi madhab. Okay, that's a scholar. That is a scholar that we can call him Hanafi. But those who pray out like a layman, pray. Let's say you are born in Pakistan. Then, if you are born in Pakistan, then you'll pray according to Hanafi, even if you don't even know that's the Hanafi. If you don't know, so but when we came to America, we met people from different backgrounds, and people pray differently, right? So, like Salatul Eid, for example, Eid prayer. If you're in a predominantly Hanafi masjid, you pray in a certain way. But if you are in a predominantly Shafi'i masjid, you pray differently. And people come, oh, why are praying like this? I've never seen anything like this. Okay, because you grew up in Egypt, you have never seen Hanafi Eid prayer. But now you are in America, you live in this city, this is your local masjid, and the Imam is Hanafi, and they pray according to Hanafi. So there's nothing wrong of having different madahib, but we just need to respect each other. So if you pray according to Hanafi and someone, or you went to a masjid, pray differently, then you follow the local Imam. No fighting, nothing. But some fanatic people, they make big fuss about this, and they consider this, the entire salah is wrong. So, for example, according to Hanafi, it's not sunnah to say Ameen loudly when the Imam say Waladdaleen. But if you pray in the Shafi'i masjid, I liked it when I was young. I would go to Al Hussein Masjid and Al Azhar, pray Jum'ah. And when the Imam says, وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, and you have like hundreds, if not thousands of people say, Ameen together. I enjoy it. I like it, right? But if you, one of these guys actually went to pray in a masjid that's all Hanafis. And when the Imam said, Wala Dalin, he was the only one who said, Ameen. And after Salah, they stood up. Who did Ameen love? You never do this again. If you do this, we'll kick you out of this masjid. Just take it easy. I mean, it's okay. Yani, it's not like one is right and the other is wrong. Okay? So it's that this is right and this is right. Right? So when you go to Al-Haram, if you go to Mecca or Medina and you pray, the Imams there are Hanbalis. I don't know if you know that. They follow the Hanbali madhab. I don't know if you noticed that when they pray janazah, they don't say salam twice. They say salam alaikum one time. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullah. And others waiting for the second one. There's no second one. It's just one salam alaikum. Right. If you are there in Mecca and Medina, pray like follow the Imam in Mecca and the Imam of Medina. Don't make a big fuss about this, right? So we need just to understand our different ways of doing the same thing. The essence are the same, but the shape or there are some differences here and there. Okay, what we need to understand is that they're all legitimate. If you follow one of them, fine, good for you, but don't criticize others of doing things differently.
I read about Pakistan. One Imam, famous Imam in Pakistan, refused to pray behind another Imam because his beliefs were different.
Well,
That
yes,
doesn't make sense to me.
it does not make sense to me either because this is when fanaticism comes in, and with all due respect, some ignorance. Um, I shared this story with you before. Someone actually asked me personally these questions. I want to know if you are Hanafi or Shafi'i or Maliki, or if you're Sunni or Shi'i, or do you celebrate the Milad of the Prophet? I said, why are you asking this question? Because I have to decide whether I can pray behind you or not. So he wants to know if I'm a good Muslim, that he can pray behind me. Otherwise, his prayer is not accepted. If I did not check all of these things, one of them is missing, you are not Muslim, and therefore he cannot pray behind me. He's coming to ask the Imam, who's supposed to be more knowledgeable than him, but he put himself in a position when he has to examine my faith, my Iman, to decide to pray behind me. And this is pure ignorance. That's why ignorance is our enemy. Yes? In general, when people have more knowledge, are less fanatic. Less knowledge, more fanatic. This is how it goes.
We grew up, we are 15, 16 years old. We looked our parents and said, Father, what's your madhab?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes, we are Hanafi, so I follow Hanafi.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your advice when we grow further? We just stick with this, or what shall we do?
No, you have no madhab. You have no madhab. You are Muslim, but you do not have a madhab.
No madhab?
Your madhab is the madhab of your Imam.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? So if you travel to, let's say, to Morocco, the dominant madhab there is Maliki. So you will find the Imams and people pray slightly different or differently. All right. So you pray as they pray. Don't say that, oh, you are wrong. No, they're not wrong. They are praying according to Maliki. So when you have a question, you go to the Maliki Imam there and ask him question, and whatever fatwa he gives you, you follow it. Okay. Then you travel again back to Sudan. Oh, not Sudan, Maliki also. You go to Yemen. So you have Shafi'i and Zaidi. So you are not really Hanafi. You are praying the way your family prayed. You do things the way your local community did when you were young. You did not choose to be Hanafi. My father chose his madhab when he was admitted to Al-Azhar. You have to fill the application, what madhab you want to study. And he chose the Maliki, all right? And he studied Maliki. So he became Maliki because he studied the madhab. But if someone did not study any madhab, his madhab is the madhab of his mufti. All right?
Unrelated subject. I wanted to know why the library is Congress writer, we chose Imam Shafi'i's work to be there and not the others.
You need to make a phone call and ask them this question. I don't know.
I mean, is it he is more known to them?
Well, Western scholars and intellectuals, Orientalists, they studied in depth because Islamic law actually, I would argue that the French law is made after the Maliki madhab, because the Maliki was in North Africa, and the French actually, when they invaded this area, Algeria, and even before that, they actually found the Mudawwana of the Imam Malik is amazing legal system. And they borrowed so much from the Maliki madhab into making French law after the French Revolution. So they studied in depth these madhab. And Imam Shafi'i is a brilliant mind. We'll talk about him, inshallah. But maybe because some Orientalists wrote about his methodology and his urf, his understanding. I was reading this, and this came to my mind for the first time. I was reading white American professor who specialized in Islamic law. In the East, of course, they don't recognize him as a scholar, but he's a scholar. And he actually wrote about the concept of urf and how different madhahib have different understanding of custom. So custom to Imam Malik is the custom of the people of Medina. Whatever the custom of the people of Medina reflects the sunnah of the Prophet. Whereas for Shafi'i, his custom to him is the hadith, the authentic hadith. It doesn't have to do with that custom of the people of Medina. He expands the concept of custom to the authenticity of the hadith. That's why he said, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثُ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. If the hadith is authentic, that's my madhab. Where other, like Abu Hanifa and later scholars, Ibn Abdin and others, they wrote differently about al-urf, or the custom. So maybe some great scholars wrote about him and they found this writing interesting and they added it to the library, perhaps. I get a microphone.
I have a question closer. In your opinion, why the other imams tried to create 3 more methods after the Hanifi? Why? I mean, he created one school, and then 3 other imams came out and created 3 other methods. So, in your opinion, why?
Okay, so there were hundreds of madhabs. Keep this in mind. These people did not intend to create a madhab. That was not their intention. Abu Hanifa himself never thought that we will be talking about him in Perseberg in 2024. Abu Hanifa himself did not anticipate that his knowledge will become a madhab followed by hundreds and millions of people. So there were so many scholars. Many of them have more knowledge than Abu Hanifa and Malik, perhaps. So think about it. If you have 100 madhabs, it came down to 10, and then came down to 4. And during the 10th century, it stopped there. One, Nasser Qalawun in Egypt, they established a school called An-Nasiriyya. The first place ever when they established 4 corners and 4 study circles to teach the 4 madhab in Egypt, and still the tradition in Egypt until today. So it came down to 4 for 2 reasons. One is because the students of these scholars wrote down the knowledge of these scholars, and 2, because of the political choice, and 3, because the ummah, the schools all that produces imams, they somehow accepted only these 4 as the main 4 madhab. So it was not like a choice of Imam Shafi'i, but Imam Shafi'i he's a student of Malik, but he disagreed with his teacher because their teachers also taught them to be independent thinkers. And Shafi'i has his own independent thinking, and he came up with a methodology to produce new laws. So, and then he had students, and students wrote his knowledge and became famous. So it's like, so there are so many scholars are not famous, but great scholars. You don't even know their name. You know the names of the people in the social media, good speakers. If I ask you now, name 5 scholars. You can perhaps find 5 scholars, but there are hundreds of scholars that you don't know anything about them. But they are great scholars because they're not as popular. So popularity, it's not. It does not mean that there are only 4, or the Prophet said you must have only 4 madhab. It just happened to be 4 madhab.
Would we combine them under Salafis?
No. The word Salafis is widely misunderstood. Salafis refer to Salaf. Salaf, the first 3 generations. Sahaba, Tabi'een, and Tabi'at Tabi'een. All right, these are the 3 generations. The Prophet's generation, Sahaba, and then the second and the third generation. The Prophet said the best generations are my generation, the next generation, and the next generation. So when we have different or new theological ideas that comes from different religions, we stick with the understanding of these 3 generations. So we consider them point of reference. All right, because Islam interacted with other religions and new ideas came in, right? Especially when it comes to the attributes of God and so on. So we always stick with the understanding of the first 3. That's what I said. So we are all Salafis because we love the Sahaba and Tabi'een and Tabi'at Tabi'een. We all respect them and love them because they inherited the religion and they passed it to us. And the Prophet acknowledged them as the best generation. So we look up to them as great ulama, like Abu Hanifa and those who came right before and right after him. These 3 generations were the best. So Salafis means that to go back to the understanding of the Salaf, especially when it comes to theological issues. Right?
I think the treatment started when we lost the deen of Islam, and consequently, over centuries or period of time, we all got into rituals. That's what we practice. We don't practice deen. For deen, you need a land, you need a head of the state who is properly educated in Islam, and he puts the Islamic laws into action. So deen will be practiced. Then the rituals are important in their own place, but then rituals are not the thing, that's not the goal. The goal is deen, not the rituals. So now to us, we are not sure, we don't familiar with the deen anymore, because we are not practicing. And the rituals are so important to us, that's why we look up to all the 4 big names that we just mentioned. Because we think that is Islam. It is important, I'm not trying to deny that. But if you were practicing deen and the head of the state was properly taught Muslim, we will be not discussing what we are discussing today.
So this is a statement, not a question. This young man has a question here. Although I don't understand the difference between deen and rituals, you put it in a way as if rituals are not part of the deen, or the 2 opposite things. That's not true. Rituals are part of the deen. What you are talking about is the loss of political system, and I agree 100%. Since the emergence of the modern national state, we have lost big part of how Islam governs. So the governance system is lost because of the modern colonization and globalization and post-modernity. We don't have the political system that enforces the law in a way that should be. We lost that. I agree with you. And how to come back? That's the $100 million question. How can we go back to our golden age? Yes. Last question.
You said that every person, like a layman, does not have a method. So how much knowledge does one need to gain to quote unquote have it?
You need to go to a well-established institution like Al-Azhar, and you choose to study 4 or 5 years, depending on the degree you want to get. If you don't get a bachelor degree in Islamic law, then you study at least 4 years, a particular madhab. Then you get a degree in knowledge of Maliki or Shafi'i. And then you can what your name is Hashim what? Hashim Safi al-Maliki. So they always add the Maliki as part of your name. So you can call yourself Hashim Safi al-Maliki. All right. But before that, before you get this degree, you don't really have a madhab. You have to study the madhab, right? And to be specialized in the madhab in order to be Maliki or Shafi'i or Hanafi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.